Who are the best DFS plays for your FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, and PrizePicks picks of the week? What are the injury updates you need to know going into Sunday and Monday games? And what did we think of the Thursday night Thanksgiving Day feast of games? It's time to break it down right here, right now, as we begin another edition and close another week of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. It is that time. It is Friday, the end of the week here, Locked On Fantasy Football, ahead of Week 12. That means we'll look at our DFS report. We're going to break down the players you should be targeting on the main slate here for FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, as well as our PrizePicks picks of the week, our title DFS sponsor here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Then we'll also look at the injury updates you need to know for all the players going on Sunday and Monday. Before we do that, we'll break down also what we saw on Thursday, the triple header on Thanksgiving. A few takeaways from those games before we dive into DFS. Before we do all that, it was Thanksgiving yesterday. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Thanks here from us for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're free and available to you on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, we will quickly break down what we saw. We'll go in order of the games. The Bills-Lions game, more points than we thought to make it close from the Lions side of things, but the Bills controlled it. The surprise there was Isaiah McKenzie stepping up. Stephon Diggs did get a touchdown later in the game, but Josh Allen looked more like Josh Allen. I thought that he was in control for most of the game, except for that red zone interception he had. So looking good there. Gabe Davis, it had to be disappointing for him for sure, and Devin Singletary. You can't always get all the Bills to go off at the same time. This happened to be a random Isaiah McKenzie week, so that comes to Dawson Knox as well. On the other side of things, Jamal Williams keeps scoring touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, clearly the number one target there for Jared Goff. So a lot of things we expected to happen in that game did happen. The Lions are a little bit more competitive than I personally thought. But again, there's not much there between Williams and DeAndre Swift. Boy, you can't look at him too much here with the usage behind now Williams and Justin Jackson in that passing game for the Lions. So it's hard here at this point. And you look at the Bills again, the mouths to feed are a little bit difficult from week to week. And I thought the Bills offense left a little bit on the table. Now, in the second game, Giants kind of played like we expected. Saquon Barkley grinded through, did get a touchdown. Richie James was the garbage guy late here. We thought it might be tough sledding for Daniel Jones, and it was mostly in that game. They did have the lead, but then the Cowboys really took control in the second half here. Dak Prescott, it was messy, a couple interceptions there in the game. We thought it would be kind of sloppy. I thought he would have a limited ceiling, and that happened here with Prescott. He did have a touchdown, a good running effort by Ezekiel Elliott. Told you Elliott was going to be pretty good against the Giants. We liked him quite a bit there this week, and he delivered. Tony Pollard, not as much there with the excitement, but looking at Michael Gallup, he became a little bit more relevant as well. That was good to see. So we'll see what they do with Odell Beckham Jr. if that materializes, if Gallup continues to play that well, playing off CD Lamb there. And that, so that also played out a lot like we expected. The Giants closing the gap there a little bit late with the garbage touchdown. And then the Vikings-Patriots game, big rebound game, I should say, for Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. Adam Thielen gets back in the end zone. T.J. Hawkinson with his best game as a Viking. So those three principles in the offense came through against the Patriots. Patriots chose to shut down Dalvin Cook in the running game, which was the guy they took out versus Jefferson in the game. So Worked out well for those receivers and Cousins. Rare, nice primetime performance from Cousins. He still had an interception, but came back. They had the 10 points in the fourth quarter, won that. Mac Jones did look a little better with his 2 touchdown passes, getting that early one to Nelson Aguilar. And Ramondre Stevenson, another good game from scrimmage. So a little bit better play from Mac Jones. The Vikings defense a little bit vulnerable as we've seen, but that's how we look at it there for the Thursday action. Our takeaways there, and we can close the books on their performances there. Those 6 teams are out of the mix, so we have a limited main slate, even with no bye weeks this week. 11 games to pick from there in the 1 p.m. Eastern time window. So let's get into our picks there for FanDuel and DraftKings. So if you're playing in cash games, my favorite pick here is Justin Herbert on FanDuel. 7,900 for sure is a good price for Herbert. He's in sync with his weapons. Keenan Allen just coming back was big. And really, it hasn't mattered much without Mike Williams because Josh Palmer's playing so well. So you got him. You also look like you'll get Jared Everett back. And the Cardinals are terrible against the tight end. So another source of production there. So the going injury, Everett had a setback there late that caused him to miss the Chiefs game, but he's trending in the right direction this week with a full practice. We'll get into that in our next segment with the injury report. But yeah, looking good for Herbert's weapons, including Austin Eckler. I think they'll give him a little bit more run in the receiving game to take advantage of the Cardinals this week and their weaker linebackers as they also attack them with the tight end. So 7,900 for Justin Herbert, like that price for good return in cash games. If I'm going tournament style here, I especially like this value on DraftKings, and we're going to talk about him as well with our PrizePicks. But Derek Carr, 6,700 on DraftKings. He's starting to play pretty well here. He's got Devontae Adams producing this week. I think Foster Moreau could have a bigger game against that Seahawks team, another team that struggles against the tight end. So definitely looking at an easy 2 touchdown performance. They should have a negative game script up there in Seattle for Derek Carr. And they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit effectively. So that's going to open up the middle of the field and things for Devontae Adams, who's been on fire here. So tying Carr with Adams always a good idea. So if you want to go stack in that way, that's totally fine in tournaments. Good way to go. If you're going to play Carr, it follows that you'd want to play Adams as well. So 7,900 for Herbert on FanDuel, Derek Carr 6,700 on DraftKings. All right, let's go with running back. I did have a potential full house Dolphins backfield here with Raheem Mostert, but Mostert, a little bit concerning, 2 missed practices with a knee injury. We'll get into him as well. So, but that makes me like Jeff Wilson even more so as a must play on both formats this week. 7,700 for Wilson. He is the starting running back regardless. It is the atrocious Texans run defense. So the best matchup you can get, best price point. I get there's going to be high ownership on Jeff Wilson Jr., but who cares? You're going to put him in there in every format, everything you're thinking about, cash games, tournaments, FanDuel, DraftKings, it doesn't matter. Jeff Wilson, 7,700 on FanDuel, 5,900 DraftKings. Great prices there for the main slate. With the concern about Mostert for FanDuel, pivoting to James Conner, great matchup against the Chargers run defense this week. Did score even in that tough matchup against the 49ers. They're going to have to lean on him more. I know Kyler Murray's returning, which should also help here, as Murray can't run as freely, potentially with a hamstring injury. So 7,000 for James Conner, good price there. Kenneth Walker, I won in all tournament formats this week, 6,900. He's going to run all over the Raiders. I can see him have a huge game. It's a bye-week return here, so well-rested for the rookie running back. So if there's any question about a wall, keep in mind he didn't play as much early because he had the sports hernia surgery, so he's out for a while. Then he had Rashad Penny. So Walker should be fresher than most rookies, especially with the bye here. So 6,900 there on DraftKings. Love that price. Now, let's go for FanDuel. I think Christian Kirk has a pretty good matchup here, and the volume is going to save him against the Ravens, who are pretty good outside with Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey, but they're going to be missing their safety, Kyle Hamilton. They're pretty weak in the nickel package there. So Kirk working in the middle of the field with high volume, 7,700, a good price for him for a decent day overall. It could push for 100 and a score for Trevor Lawrence this week. DK Metcalf, love Kenneth Walker, but I also love Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. This could be a complete onslaught here by the Seahawks lined up. That's why I like Derek Carr. I think he'll be throwing for most of the second half here. So weak secondary on the outside. Metcalf can overpower them, 7,200, great price. Josh Palmer, no Mike Williams, pretty certain about that, 6,800 there in FanDuel like that. I also like him in DraftKings tournaments. We know he has multiple touchdown upside. We know the Cardinals gave up multiple touchdowns to multiple players last week, Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. So I like that number 5,400 there. So Josh Palmer, either way, you're going with him, much like Jeff Wilson. Either format, you're looking at Terry McLaurin as well. AJ Terrell's back, but he hasn't been all that great, and feeling it with one Taylor Heineke, 5,800 for Terry McLaurin. I think he could go off with 100 and multiple touchdowns in this game, so that's why I like him in tournaments. 5,800 there for Terry McLaurin after he was kind of quiet last week against the Texans. And Jamar Chase, there might be some reluctance to play him, but at 7,600, you're not going to get a better price here working against the Titans secondary. He's fully expected return here. We'll get into that as well. So Jamar Chase in tournaments. Now, if I'm going at tight end and I want to go the safe route either way to make sure I'm getting a stud here, and Travis Kelce is available, but I like the Mark Andrews matchup. He got going a little bit last week against the Panthers. I think he's more full Mark Andrews this week. 7,300 on FanDuel, 6,500 DraftKings. Good prices there for Andrews. Foster Moreau, if I'm going cheap, that cheat code matchup against the Seahawks this week. Gerald Everett, also an option, but Moreau can get you a little bit value for cheaper. 5,400 on FanDuel, 3,400 on DraftKings. And finally, defense, special teams, when we're looking at options there. The Broncos playing Sam Darnold, rusty here coming off in Carolina. So the Broncos pass rush can be angry. They let a lot happen to Derek Carr last week. So I think at 3,900, very cheap price there. You won't get the Broncos for a better deal. And then on DraftKings, the Chiefs are 2,800. Chiefs are going to tee off against this Rams team. John Wolford looks like he'll be healthy enough to play here for Matthew Stafford with the concussion issues, but it's still John Wolford, high volume on the road, chances for sacks and takeaways for that Chiefs defense once the Chiefs offense builds a lead here in that matchup. So looking forward to those things to develop well in our favor in DFS this week. And it's good to get in on DFS in different ways. And one way you can definitely do that, and we know that from our flagship sponsor here for DFS, that's PrizePicks. And we'll get into our PrizePicks picks of the week there. We got some selections we've circled there to help you get into the game there. And really, it's daily fantasy made. Easy entries are there that you can make so quickly there. And you're looking at player projections, what's available, and you're trying to get more or less than what PrizePicks sets. So you're good to go with your winning, and it's very easy. Again, we're looking at the yard totals, especially. We like that in our PrizePicks picks, and looking at going to more as well. So we can kind of look at the better matchups versus going a little bit negative, but you can play it in many different ways here. Pick 2 to 5 players. They score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people, just humors and projections. Available PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's not just the NFL, NBA, NHL in season now, but also college sports. Basketball is back, football, big weekend here, as well as World Cup soccer. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. You can always expect safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in more than 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time user can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On to sign up for an instant deposit match worth up to $100 only at PrizePicks.com. All right, we will continue the show here, Locked On Fantasy Football, looking at my injury updates for the week here that we are anticipating the statuses of these players ahead of Sunday and Monday games. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's quickly go to the injury updates. We'll save the PrizePicks picks of the week for our final segment here on Locked On Fantasy Football of the week. All right, let's look at injuries that you need to know about. A Kyler Murray looks like he's going to return from a hamstring injury. Got a full practice there, so he's good to go here over Colt McCoy. And again, there was a little bit of controversy where they stick with Colt McCoy, but McCoy is dealing with the right elbow injury. So Murray's now the healthier quarterback of the two for the Chargers game. Lamar Jackson a little bit concerned when he popped up with a no practice with a hip injury, but he's good to go, got in full practice. PJ Walker is probably healthy enough to play for the Panthers, but they're going with Sam Darnold. They're in the matchup against the Broncos. Justin Fields is going to be fine here to play, but beware, it's a left shoulder. There's a pain tolerance issue. Could he not feel it here, be taken out of the game? Running maybe a little bit tentative. Throwing might be tentative, even though it's the left shoulder, not the throwing shoulder. So something to watch out for definitely in this matchup. So I don't love it as well. Like if I have a healthier option and a better matchup, I'm going to go there versus Fields working with pain. And again, he could get it aggravated during the game. He pops out of there. Then you're really in a tough spot. And I don't think it's worth the limited upside there to play Justin Fields, even with the running this week against the Jets. Now, looking at Aaron Rodgers' right thumb injury, he's put up the numbers of late in garbage time, but he should be good to go again with the right thumb. Matthew Stafford going to miss this game. Concussion and neck injuries there for the Rams quarterback against the Chiefs. So John Wolford looking good. He's got a full practice. He's probably going to be the starter, so they don't have to go to Bryce Perkins this week. You have Ryan Tannehill working in full now with the ankle injury, so he's fully healthy, good to go, putting up some good numbers of late, and volume is going to be high against the Bengals. And Taylor Heineke, good matchup at home against the Falcons. Went full with his back injury. He's good to go this week. And Derek Carr was dealing with the back injury. He's off there, not even with a designation for the Raiders this week. All right, let's look at the running backs. Cordell Patterson is fine. Just a little bit of load management for him for the Falcons on Thursday. Caleb Huntley dealing with the ankle issue, so you could see a little bit more of Tyler Algier with Patterson, but really tough matchup against that Commanders run defense this week. In Washington, Gus Edwards looks like he could return for the Ravens, hamstring and knee injuries, but full practice, good side there on Thursday, so taking over this backfield with the majority of power touches there over Kenyon Drake, possibly. Joe Mixon doesn't look good with a concussion. Looks like it's going to be a committee of Samaje Perine and Chris Evans, that knee injury, but he will return, looks like, this week with a full practice. So expect a Perine Evans type committee approach. Also, the Titans are very hard to run on, so it might favor Perine a little bit more, but Evans is also a good pass catcher here there. So keep that in mind. I think if you had a better running back and a better matchup, I would go there if you didn't have Mixon and he was your lead back, but I'd be going with Perine or in desperation, Evans there if you're really low on running backs without Mixon. Latavius Murray should be good to go with the wrist injury. Good matchup against the Panthers. Aaron Jones added a glute issue with the shin, but he'll be playing. There are 2 limited practices. He'll be good to go for the Eagles. And Jerick McKinnon is fine with the shoulder hamstring injury. Clyde Edwards-Helaire not available here, so looking at that for McKinnon. Raheem Mostert, 2 missed practices with a knee injury, a little bit concerning after the bye that it's not just a management issue. We'll find out on Friday if that's the case, if they're just being careful with him. Again, I like Mostert playing him with Wilson and DFS in certain formats there if you can do that. But Mostert, if he's out, Wilson is going to smash it against the Texans as the lead back with only maybe a little bit of Myles Gaskin behind him. Alvin Kamara dealing with the illness. We'll check on him on Friday, but he should go against the 49ers, even though that tough matchup. Mark Ingram, 2 limited practices, a good chance he can return in this game as well. Jalen Warren probably going to miss the game. They added some depth there in Master Teague in Pittsburgh, so that tells you that they don't believe Warren can play. So Najee Harris should have the backfield mostly to himself with a little bit of Benny Snell against the Colts on Monday night. So no Jalen Warren. Leonard Fournette, before the bye, he got hurt. He had that big wrap around his hip there at the end of that win over the Seahawks, but he should be good to go. 2 limited practices here for the Buccaneers running back. But again, Rachaad White could get a little bit more run this week because of that, but I still like Fournette to play in that really good matchup against the Browns run defense. Derrick Henry is fine here, but his real rookie kind of power backup, Hassan Haskins, hip injury limited. So we'll see if he can go or if it's going to be a little bit more of Dontrell Hilliard behind Henry that game against the Bengals. Rondell Moore probably going to be out for this game against the Chargers. Greg Dortch, who replaced him well against the 49ers, looks like he'll be also out with a thumb injury unless he gets a good practice in on Friday. So Looking at a DeAndre Hopkins target domination this week here for the Cardinals. Demarcus Robinson hip injury issue there that popped up on Thursday. So we'll see if he can go here for the Ravens. It was okay with Lamar Jackson after the missed practice, but Marcus Robinson would really make them thin at receiver, looking deeper for James Prochet behind Devin Duvernay this week. Terrace Marshall Jr. shoulder injury limited. There don't like the matchup at all against the Broncos, but he still could be available with 2 limited practices. Jamar Chase working in limited fashion here, but should be returning against the Titans with the hip injury. Jerry Jeudy, a missed practice again, so it looks not good for Jeudy to return, as well as KJ Hamler with the hamstring. So a lot more of Cortland Sutton, I should say, and Kendall Hinton this week, and a little bit more Greg Dulcich, let's hope. But tough matchup this week against the Panthers, and that defense with Jeremy Chin returning. Alan Lazard, shoulder injury limited for 2 days. He should go. Randall Cobb as well. So Lazard, Cobb, and Christian Watson should be the guys. Romeo Doubs with an ankle injury, missing another practice and likely another game. Paris Campbell dealing with an illness for the Colts, but he'll be out there Monday against the Steelers. Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 full practices, good chance that he'll be cleared and returning against the Rams. At the same time, Kadarius Toney, hamstring injury, 2 missed practices. He's probably going to miss the game. Keenan Allen is going to play through the hamstring with 2 full practices there, and he'll play against the Cardinals this week. Mike Williams, 2 missed practices, the ankle. He's going to miss it, so more Josh Palmer in that matchup against the Cardinals. Allen Robinson, 2 limited practices, but he'll be out there for John Wolford with the ankle injury. Jalen Waddle, shoulder full, coming off the bye. He's good to go for the Dolphins. Jarvis Landry scored last week with the ankle injury. He's good to go to limited practices. Corey Davis looks like he's going to return with his new quarterback, Mike White, his new old quarterback. Mike White replacing Zach Wilson, went full. Corey Davis should be out there. A.J. Brown missed practice there for the Eagles with an illness, but he should be good to go for the Packers. Devonta Smith popped back up with a limited issue with his knee, but also should be playing in that game against Green Bay. Miles Boykin, the Steelers will be down without that receiver with the oblique. So a lot more George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson against the Colts. Deebo Samuel, 2 limited practice with the hamstring. He should be good to go, however, against the Saints. D. Eskridge, 2 missed practices. So you could see more so run for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett this week. Russell Gage, 2 missed practices with the knee. So probably not going to be out there. Julio Jones is going to take on a key third role behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And turning to tight end, Zach Ertz not practicing. He's not going to play against the Chargers. They haven't quite put him on an IR yet, but he's not going to play. Ian Thomas with a bit of an illness there, but he should play for the Panthers. Not that you're going to use him in fantasy. David Njoku, ankle and knee injuries. A little bit concerning that he missed Wednesday's practice, limited there, and also with the extra injury. We'll see if he can go against the Buccaneers. Robert Tonyan with an illness there should be playing. A lot of illnesses going around. It must be that time of year. And looking at that, I think he'll go against the Eagles. Kyle Granson also missed practice for the Colts with an illness here. Jelani Woods, however, is going to return, so that makes it messy with Granson, Woods, and Mo Alley Cox. Gerald Everett, we said the full practice. He looks like he's on track to return, barring a setback here against the Cardinals. You're looking at Tyler Higbee this week. Again, looking like he will go here with a limited practice there on Thursday. Logan Thomas, rib injury, but he'll play through that. Played well as the leading receiver. Good matchup against the Falcons this week here for him. So those are the main things we're looking at here on the injury radar there with our offensive skill players for this week. We will close the show looking at our prize picks of the week for daily fantasy sports on that platform. Before we do that, did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package theft spiked nationally? That's why our friends at SimpliSafe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your SimpliSafe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. Here's why I have to highly recommend SimpliSafe here. The safety doesn't get any better than that. My home and my family comes first, and they're always there to help avert a break-in with the right technology, and their team is always there. Their 24/7 monitoring agents are always on top of things. They also have a tech support staff. So if anything wrong with their advanced technology, you can fix in a hurry but you usually won't because it's crystal clear HD live streaming of your security cameras and a lot of high-tech sensors. So they're always on point, always taking care of you. And that's why SimpliSafe was named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report for a third year. They're an emergency 24/7 professional monitoring agents use fast protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so you can get a priority police response. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I would recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedonnfl. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/lockedonnfl. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, it is time to close the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football and the week, and we'll get into our PrizePicks picks of the week. So these are just the projections we like, and we always look for the more rather than the less here because that's how we like to play it. We look at the glass as half full. So let's go for the guys that are going to go over that cup and really have our cup run full here this week. Joe Burrow, 270.5 is the projection on PrizePicks for the passing yards. I'm going more with Joe Burrow. You have to throw on the Titans. He's getting Jamar Chase back. Good matchups as well for T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. For some more for Joe Burrow than 270.5 passing yards. Ryan Tannehill, same game, but Joe Burrow on the other side, he's going to have to throw more than he would like. You know, the Bengals could also get their run defense short up with DJ Reader back in the mix. He's a tough run stopper, so that could slow down Derrick Henry just enough for Ryan Tannehill to put up more than 215.5 passing yards there. I also talked about Derek Carr in DFS. This number is pretty low based on the volume, 244.5. So going more on Derek Carr as well as Ryan Tannehill and Joe Burrow for their passing yards this week. Now, with running yards, not a lot that really pulled out for me, but definitely one is Kenneth Walker. So we like the Carr-Walker combination, however you like it. Pedestrian versus automobile, 73.5 rushing yards. Going more for Kenneth Walker. I think he runs all over the Raiders. And another interesting one, Antonio Gibson against the Falcons, 55.5. Like that number with his usage here as the main touchback. If he's getting 20 touches overall, I think enough in the rushing attack to get that number. So 55.5 more rushing yards for Antonio Gibson. Let's get into our receiving picks of the week here. Mark Andrews had mentioned they're going to give him a little bit more punch here, especially if there's a concern with Demarcus Robinson and the injury. 60.5. We're going more for Mark Andrews for receiving yardage in that game against the Jaguars. Devontae Adams, if Carr is going to put up some numbers, he's going to put quite a few up with Devontae Adams, 85.5. That's low based on the way that Adams has been playing of late. And Seahawks secondary has Tariq Woolen and Mike Jackson. These are young corners. We know Adams likes to eat on those guys, and they also scheme him up inside. So 85.5, going more for receiving yards on Devontae Adams. Christian Kirk, 63.5. I think he can get to 70, 75 easily in that matchup here, so not worried too much there. So Christian Kirk going more than 63.5, working the slot in a high volume situation against the Ravens at home this week. And we don't usually go for this one, but more fantasy points. I think Jeff Wilson's going to blow up here. That's where we could get the projection here. So more than 14 fantasy points for Jeff Wilson Jr. against that Texans putrid run defense. And one more receiving. This is the bonus receiving. Jalen Waddle, 66.5, another Dolphin to look at this week. I think Tyreek Hill a little bit maybe too high in that game, as Hill could be the centerpiece attention of trying to cover him with the Texans. I'll probably double team him without Derek Stingley Jr. So I do like Jalen Waddle here at 66.5, taking more than that for his receiving yardage against the Texans at home this week. So there you have it. There's a look at our PrizePicks picks of the week. We went through DFS as well on FanDuel DraftKings, as well as the injury updates you need to know for the Sunday Monday game. So a comprehensive way to close the week here at Locked On Fantasy Football at a Week 12 games. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football for your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Good luck in all your Week 12 Sunday and Monday fantasy football matchups, whether you're playing season long or DFS. And we'll catch you Monday with all the reaction to what we saw on the field as we flip the script from Week 12 to Week 13.